can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here. I'm founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Baby Einstein, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. And today I'm very excited. We have Laura Fuentes. She's founder of Momables.com and the food and lifestyle brand LauraFuentes.com, where she works with big brands that hire her like Sabra Hummus, Nestle, Bob Red Mill, many more. They reach over 700,000 unique visitors per month, and Momables helps parents feed their children great tasting, healthy foods. And the most important part, Laura, is without spending eternity in the kitchen or breaking the bank. And they provide weekly recipe plans, cookbooks. I love the title of this one, The Best Homemade Kids Snacks on the Planet. And there's 2 others. And they even partner with a done-for-you meal delivery service to make it ultra easy. And she does this all with, while raising 3 kids. Laura, thanks for joining me.
I'm super excited to be here, Jeremy.
Yeah, so I always like to include a fun fact that most people don't know, and we were talking before, and you said, I don't know if you know this, but you're busy enough with the business and the kids, but you homeschool your kids.
Yes.
So tell me about that decision. That's not an easy decision.
No, so our kids are 10, almost 9, and 4.5, and last year was our first school year homeschooling, that 2015-16 school year.
Yeah.
And essentially, I just wanted the flexibility to take my kids anywhere I went through my business opportunities and family travel on my own time schedule, as opposed to having to cram that in during summer vacation or holidays when everybody else is traveling. And I'm, as you can imagine, because of the nature of my work, which is it's really focused a lot of it on back to school, the summertime has really been historically my busiest time of the year. So for me to go on vacation during the summer, it's nearly impossible.
Why is it the busiest time?
So in the summer, as you know, in business, we focus on creating products and really gearing up campaigns, and that's not the week before back to school. I mean, we start working in June.
You're gearing up for the back to school rush.
Right, just like retailers gear up for Christmas beginning in September or earlier, we really start in May and June, and I just found it really difficult to fit it all in, and so I basically decided that I wanted to be able to take my kids to Spain for a month in September, go to Utah skiing with my boys for 10 days, and not be worried about taking homework with us, or also having to account for our missed days to the school district. So we just made a decision that I would, we have structured programs and things that I follow for homeschooling. They go to tutoring centers.
Right.
They are very active in social activities.
Yeah.
But all of that requires a lot of foreplanning. And so it worked out great. I asked my children repeatedly if they wanted to go back to regular school, and they said no. So I think that's a good sign.
You mean you gave them, they're like, no, I want to go to a month in Spain, Mom. I don't want to go back to school.
I mean, I basically told them, if you want to go back to regular school, that's fine. But
Right.
there's only
Give
so
them the
many days
choice.
you can miss. And if we're going on a trip, you're going to have to stay with the grandparents or not come along. And they really weren't into that part.
Yeah.
And so I think they really realized the benefits of having a flexible schedule and the ability to have time to really figure out what they really like to do, as opposed to being rushed through school, homework, after school activities. I think any parent listening can really relate to that after school rush. And then I was just tired of giving the best of their time and focus to someone else, So far, so good.
Laura, what do you think's impacted them the most of you run this business from home, and they see a lot of what you do in the business. What do you hear from them of what's impacted them, of how they see you run the business?
So I think if you ask my 10-year-old, because she's much more, she's a girl, so number one, she's a little bit more mature than her brother.
She's a little smarter, a little more mature.
Boys take a little longer.
Right.
But, this is a real deal. now she realizes, like, we'll talk about video production. And so I invite my children. I never pressure them, but I always say, like, hey, these are the recipes we're cooking on video day. If you would like to be in one of the videos, let me know. And they do from time to time. They're, optional. But once they've seen how, like, this all happens, they realize that this is for real. Like, this is real business. This isn't mom. Like, this isn't, I don't even know that they understand what, like, blogging for fun might be, but this isn't, like, a hobby. This is what's really supporting our family.
Right.
Now that dad's on board, like, they understand, like, okay, this is, like, serious stuff.
Yeah.
We just had a photo shoot 2 days ago and at night, which is not the best time to take at 6:30 o'clock, a 4-year-old to take photos, but that's,
right.
the only time we
They start
could,
crying very quickly.
Right? Oh, yeah, you got a 20-minute span to take photos. And, and they didn't want to do it. And dad just basically stepped in and said, hey, this is for our job. This is what we have to do as a family. And so everybody got dressed and did it. So they're understanding that this isn't just about, like, something that mom's doing. Like, this is really a full family affair.
Yeah. So with the homeschooling, what did you find? There's a lot of advantages. What were the disadvantages that didn't quite hold you back for doing it, but that you were thinking about?
So I never knew how much time there is to fill. Like, number one, how efficient, like, teaching a subject at home can be. So, for example, like, the same thing that my friends' kids might learn in 1 or 2 weeks, it literally takes us maybe an hour, like, to truly teach the concept.
Yeah.
And so that leaves you with a lot of time to fill during the day.
So it's more efficient, you feel.
It's super efficient.
Then you have to fill more time.
Find activities and things for your kids to do. So my kids aren't really actively learning for, between 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. They're actively learning between 9 and 11:30 or 9 to 1, depending on the day. And then what? So then, you don't want them hanging out at home playing Minecraft on the computer.
Right.
So you really have to find creative outlets for them, ways for them to learn new skills. Like, my daughter picked up video editing this year. Now she just got a camera, so now she's going to learn how to...
You're going to hire her?
She's going to put my video crew out of a job soon. But she's interested. And so what I found is that it's a great opportunity for them to find the things that they like to do and do more of that.
Yeah.
The 4-year-old doesn't really count, but,
So tell me about, 3 kids, work, now homeschooling. I had a big question, which is, what does your daily schedule look like? And we were talking about, you're very regimented, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What time do you wake up? Tell me about what your schedule looks like.
So most people think I'm a little insane. But I've recently started, I say recently, in the last 9 months, I figured out that there is such a thing as, I'm not a morning person, but becoming a morning person, because that's really the only way to fit it in. So I typically it's probably 3 to 4 days a week. So that's, on a regular schedule. During the work week, I get up around 4:30, 4:45. I'm at the gym by 5 or 5:15, depending on the day. I'm back home by 6:40, and then Monday mornings between 6:40 and 7:45, when everyone's sleeping, during school year, that's when I would take that hour to lesson plan for the week. And it doesn't take that long. So
lesson plan, you mean the weekly recipe plan, right?
No, the school lesson plan.
The school lesson plan.
Monday
oh
mornings.
My gosh. Man.
Yeah. So my kids have a weekly agenda, so I basically write down what they have to do.
Right.
I don't really put like 9 to 10 a.m. I just say the subject, what they have to do, and so they're free to. They're free to work on their own time.
Yeah.
And this is what you have to get done. So they roll around the kitchen around 7:45 or so. So at that time there's breakfast, all of that, and then I leave the house by 8:30 most mornings. I now have a office outside the home this year to make it more efficient for me to work.
You're not getting distractions.
Yeah, which actually was a game changer, because when I used to work for home or have the office upstairs, my kids were coming. They were just excited to have me around, and there was the structure was lacking for all of us.
Yeah.
So
they knew you were there, so that you're accessible.
They knew I was there. Yeah. And so I couldn't focus on work. And that also made me never stop working. So now literally when I get home at 4, I'm done. Like I don't even, some days I leave my laptop at the office. I don't bring it home. I no longer work from home after 4 o'clock. It's been a big game changer. So
what made you make that decision? Because I think you started Momables in 2011 or
yes.
So this is like, 5 years in that you get your own office. What made you decide to make the change?
So I realized that I needed to change. I can't control my kids wanting to have me around. So I needed to be more, it made me be more structured with my time as well. In the office, we have like 15 calendars, different colors going. I know exactly what I need to get done every day. And then it also taught my kids to, when I'm not there, they also have things to do. And so when I get home, we cook, we go places, we do the afternoon stuff like most parents. Right. But during the day, they also have their own focus time and things they have to get done. Yeah. Now, the summer is totally, I'm like, it's a free-for-all. Like my kids go to the pool, my in-laws, my parents, every day is different. Right. So the constant thing is that I leave the house every day. And then clearly we have somebody that
at some point. Yeah.
That steps in. My husband is now with us, so we will have a very different fall schedule where he has certain days that he'll oversee homeschool, and then they'll go to homeschool center. But on a typical day, literally, I get to the office between 8:30 and 9, and I leave by 4. And then I just work on meal plans, I work on deadlines, I work on content. Email is the death of most of us. It's so super time consuming. Schedule out social media, talk with my team, and then when I leave, I get to be mom.
There was a point, though, you were working late in the evenings, right? Tell me about one of those times.
So
it wasn't always this schedule.
No. It wasn't always like this, actually. It used to be that I literally, after dinner, my husband, cleanup would happen, and around 7:30 at night, I would go upstairs to the office, which is located kind of like above our garage. It's a fully finished office. And I would work between 7:30 and 11:30, midnight, whatever. I mean, whatever it took, every single day.
What were you working on at those hours?
Recipe development, meal planning, writing out. So a lot of the recipes get tested. It's just the food that I feed my family. I live on Post-its.
Yes, exactly.
Post-its, notes on my phone, photos on my iPhone, and then somehow you have to transfer all of that into paper. So a lot of the times I'm writing blog posts. I contribute to numerous places. Magazine articles, print magazines, media pitches. I mean, literally website design. Like there isn't anything that I don't know how to do in my business. I think this is like most entrepreneurs when you
have to do everything. Yeah.
You start by yourself. You do everything. You learn how to do everything, and then as you grow, you start to delegate. So I mean, I worked until really late at night for the last up until probably this past
yesterday.
Yeah, a few months ago, But like my kids were gone all of last week, and I was in the office 12-hour days. If my children are not around, and my husband's also working on a project, like I work 12, 14-hour days and all weekend if they're not around. Like I do find time for myself, but I work when my kids are not around.
Yeah. What's in the pipeline? Like how do you decide, because you said the summertime is you got to do creation, right?
Yeah.
So what are you working on now that you can talk about?
So currently, this is my first summer that I'm not writing a cookbook because the last 3 summers I've spent writing cookbooks.
What's been the most popular one? I mean, I read the best homemade kid snacks on the planet, but you have the lunches, your best lunches on the planet. What's the other one?
My third one just came out 2 weeks ago. It's the best grain-free family meals on the planet. It really addresses food allergies.
The paleo people and the food allergies and
yes,
all that
it's
stuff,
a paleo book without calling it paleo because I didn't want to corner it. It's a gluten-free book without just saying gluten-free, so it's not so fad. It's really, protein, vegetables, nothing out of a box, basically. To tell you the truth, I just put my favorite recipes into these cookbooks, and then I keep them on my kitchen counter.
Right. It's a way for you to organize them if other people buy them. What's been the most popular one so far?
Definitely the lunches one.
Lunches one.
Yeah, it's I'm very fortunate that all of my books, I've already met my minimum and I started to earn royalties, which if you ask any book author, that's very difficult to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But fortunately, what I did first is build a platform and then develop books to sell it to and continuously promote it. So the lunches definitely, I think it's one of those evergreen books that's something parents really struggle with.
For sure.
And so that.
What's the favorite recipe in the lunch or top in the lunch book and the snack book? What do you get the best feedback from? That people just love it?
Oh my gosh. The lunches one.
Or it could be a personal favorite. Okay. I'm just curious, what surprised you? Like a recipe you put out there that has just been really popular that you may not have expected?
So one of my favorite ones in the lunch book has to be, it's not really applicable to lunches, but.
Do you have a copy handy?
Yeah,
okay.
I have, so I don't have a snack, but I do have a lunches book.
Okay. Someone told me, I forgot who was interviewed, they said if you show the book, then it increases sales of the book instead of just talking about I forgot what percentage they said. So whenever I have authors on, I make sure they show the book so people can see it.
So, so what I love about the lunches book. It's a big book. Yeah, it's it's thick.
Yeah.
I actually, as somebody that owns a lot of cookbooks, I really love the texture and how this feels like in my counter. Like the pages were really thick. I didn't want something glossy or flimsy. Like,
right. It could rip.
I told the publisher, easily. I'm like, I want people to be able to make like tomato sauce and get on the page and wipe it off and be good to go, you know? But I think this was my first book, and one of my favorite recipes is one of my neighbors, when I first moved into my neighborhood 10 years ago, she shared her meatball recipe.
This is New Orleans or?
Yeah, I live outside of New Orleans,
okay,
and
right.
She's from New York, and she shared her homemade meatballs recipe, and which is one that we make like almost every other week at our house. And so I have it in there, right? And of course, like people don't think of taking meatballs to school, but what I love about this book is that I show you exactly how to package any food to go.
Yeah.
So I think the recipe introductions, every recipe has an introduction or a little short story. So that's really my favorite part about my cookbooks. Mm-hmm. It's the little tidbits that you get to learn about me as a person. And it's not just a recipe that I made up.
There's a story behind each recipe.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you don't see that.
And I love that my kids are in them. When I first took the photos for that book, it was 4 years ago. So my 4-year-old was like 6.5 months. And now in this third book, he's like older. And it's just really cool, to just see your family in something tangible.
So why no cookbook this summer?
So I'm not because I'm.
You just released it.
I just released this third one. Okay. This is the grain-free family meals.
The grain-free family meals, yeah.
Yeah, and cookbooks are extremely time-consuming. They're really 18 months in the making, and so they have really tight deadlines. Yeah. And honestly, this is a sort of a business podcast. Like I can make what I get paid for a cookbook in a week if I just do it. So. Right. It's not a financial plus. Yeah. It was more of a resume builder. Yeah. And since I didn't go to cookie school, I taught myself how to cook in the last 10 years. And
that's I think how Rachel Ray started, right? I mean, she wasn't a formal trained cook, was she?
I don't know. I should look her up.
Yeah.
But it's not that hard to learn kitchen skills and really get into it. And then, which is funny because I didn't learn how to cook I knew how to cook. I just didn't really know about food as much until after I became a parent, which I think most people can relate to that. And then I figured out, my gosh, I'm actually really good at this, and then just one thing led to the other of creating this company based on food and how to feed your family. Yeah.
What works best for selling the cookbooks for
you? Showing people the pictures, creating blog posts, and emailing my list about it consistently. You have to. I think people often have. I know this happens with a lot of people. You have a new cookbook or a new book out, and you do your initial blast, right? And then you sort of forget about it.
Exactly.
I treat my cookbooks as another product, something else. I honestly have put so much time, more time in a cookbook than any of the other products that we have out there. So. Right. it should be something that's continuously promoted in order to continue to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, you probably use that in the weekly plans too, right?
Some of our
you have a subscription. Talk about that. When did you first decide to create the subscription? People subscribe and they can get like just the weekly recipes that they can actually prepare for their kids, right?
Yeah. So in fall of 2012 is when I launched the first really paid subscription paid service. And
so were you scared at the time because at that point it was all free content, right? Sometimes people, when they put out some paid, they're a little bit worried. What was your thought process? And I know you're an MBA and you have your business degree, so you're probably like, I want to start charging from the get-go. But
I just felt like there were other meal planning companies out there at the time in 2012, and nobody was really targeting the emotional as well as the issues that as parent, like the time management issue and how the psychological thing of feeding your family is really difficult because if there's one thing about making a meal for two or making family meals, everybody focuses on that. But at the end of the day, if you spend 30, 45 minutes cooking dinner and then you bring it to the table and then your kids give you I don't want it, it just becomes a forced something to fight every single day.
Sure.
You take that personally. It's almost like going out every single day and someone telling you you don't look great today, or as opposed to nobody, it's the opposite of complimenting. And then eventually what's happening is that moms take it personally and they're like, man, what I'm making, my family doesn't like. So it's sort of a cycle. They stop trying, or my kids won't eat what I make, or they're making multiple meals.
And they just make the same thing over and over that may not be the healthiest because their kids will eat it and they don't want to have that fight type of thing.
Not only that, but it's just really not teaching your family to learn to love new things. Yeah. There's stuff I don't like to eat, but I still eat it. And to be quite frankly, most people don't know, but I just learned to really like broccoli a year ago.
That's funny.
I mean,
because there's a video with you, I think, talking with one of your kids about eating broccoli. I remember. The dinosaurs used to eat this or something.
That was my son. Yes, exactly. It was kale.
Yeah.
Not my favorite. Kale's just not my favorite because of the texture of it, but... So if it's not my favorite and I don't make it as often, it's kind of hard for me to expect my children to love it.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the psychology behind making meals for our families. What happens is that we vary our meals, but we really only using the same 20 ingredients all the time.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do is show families how you can still make your favorites, but let me help you come up with new ways of reinventing the things that may not be as loved in your family. Yeah. Typically it's all the vegetables and sometimes proteins and such, but and that's how I just discovered. I was like, wow, I'm kind of good at making up new things and they actually taste okay.
So what point did you decide to charge your audience?
Right off the get-go. So in 2012. Because I knew that there were other companies out there charging for meal plans. Yeah. And at the time when I first launched, I only offered a school lunch plan. So I decided to start in tackling the issue of I don't know what to make and pack inside of a school lunch box, because that's what I was going through at the time. My daughter was 6 and my other son was 5. Yeah. And I was very familiar. And I would put things on a thermos, pack them in a lunch box. There's always the worry of is it going to get mushy, all these things. So I started with school lunch. And eventually moved on to family dinners. And now our new website for Momables.com will launch next Monday.
Oh, it's new. Okay.
Yeah, the website's always up. Yeah. But we have new plans, new products, all kinds of things in the pipeline. So, yeah.
Beautiful design, though. At what point, because you had a site previous to Momables, right, where you started blogging.
So my personal website, laurafuentes.com, I was blogging back in 2009, 2010. Yeah. Because I'm from Spain. My mom and my friends at the time were in California, because when I came from Spain, I lived in California. I went to undergrad in California. And then I moved to New Orleans for graduate school, where I met my husband. He's from here. So after I had kids, like most people, this is back in 2010 before iPhones. Remember, our phones used to take 1.2 megapixels, right? They flipped up and you were like, ooh, the picture was super tiny. And you couldn't send the picture from your phone. So a friend of mine said, well, instead of transferring the picture onto your computer, which was an ordeal, and then emailing it out to your family and different email for everybody, she said, why don't you start a blog? It's basically like an email, but it's the same thing for everybody. And then you can just email them the link to the webpage. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like so much more efficient. And that's how I started blogging about what my family did. It's sort of like a way to share our once a week, what we did with my friends and family back home. But every time I share something about food, and this is before Pinterest and Facebook, so I know it's really hard to understand if you're listening, you're going like, what? But this is
Instagram, Facebook,
before any of this, right? I mean, Facebook was still pretty new at the time in 2010 for most of us. And basically every time I started sharing recipes or ways of doing food things, people shared that, you know? So that's how I knew I was onto something.
Yeah. So how long did you live in Spain till you moved to the U.S.?
So I was born and raised in Spain. I came here in my teens. I didn't speak a lick of English. It's something else people don't know about me.
Yeah.
And then I've been here since 1991.
Yeah. So now that you've been living here, decades, what was it like living in Spain compared to U.S.?
Life is a little slower. It's very similar to New Orleans, actually.
Really?
Yeah, things get done whenever. Although I'm from Madrid, so I'm a big city girl. Yeah. I like the busyness of a big city, and I currently reside in the opposite of that. If you look at my Twitter profile, it says Southern Suburbia. Like, seriously, it's the suburbs. I drive a minivan. I mean, I'm like those suburb moms. But I do go to New York for work a lot, and that's where I kind of recharge and get, do my meetings and stuff.
So, Laura, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were living in Spain?
You know what's funny is that my mom at the time was one of the few women that was a working mom in our social circle.
Really?
Yeah. My dad was a very well-known lawyer. His mother was she worked for the State Department. And my mom was she wasn't just like the status wife. She was a working mom. And I just loved it.
What did she do?
She was a director of human resources for a multinational company. Yeah. And I just loved seeing how she wore suits and heels, and she just put on makeup. I love the attention that she paid to herself to look her best and go to work. And so when I still tell people all the time that we all go through I want to be a teacher and this, but the image I always had since I was little is I want to be a working mom, and I want to wear heels and great suits like my mom.
Yeah, because you could tell from your background, global economics and MBA, that you always wanted to do business, obviously. I want to talk about the team and the team it takes to run Momables, but I want to talk about the lifestyle brand, because that was interesting too, because it's not like you're just running one company with Momables. You're running the lifestyle food brand with LauraFuentes.com. So tell me about, because you've landed some really big companies as clients. What's been the most rewarding client? We mentioned Sabra Hummus, we mentioned Nestle, Bob's Red Mill. Tell me how did you get one of them? What happened?
Well, there isn't really one in particular that I've loved working. Every campaign that I work on is really different. Yeah. I love when something kind of pushes my creative limits, and I teach myself how to do something new, especially video. It's been a huge learning curve for me. The way they found me basically is I started blogging out food on my personal website, LauraFuentes.com. And when I think it's 2012, 2013, when this whole influencer space really came out, and companies realized that there is such a thing as this blog, this endorsement of a product through the creation of content. Now it's like, totally, right? Like, we create content, photos, Pinterest. Right. But back in 2013, it was still relatively new. Companies didn't really have budgets. They didn't have digital teams like they have now. So a lot of it was trial and error, working with some of my first companies to do that. And so through those opportunities, I've had, this year I went for 3 weeks on the road with one of my clients, and I did like media and television
Wow.
Opportunities the entire time in Spanish, which was a first for me.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm fully bilingual,
Yeah.
and I can cook on TV. I can, not just cook on video, but that was my first experience doing television segments live in Spanish, and I was a little bit scared, and I was like, why? It's, even though it's my first language, it's just because I'd never done it before.
Right. You're used to doing it all in English, which is interesting.
Yeah. And so, and it was great. And I had, and
did
so
you reach out to them, or did they find you in that situation?
So they find me.
They found you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So they found me through my content, or the PR world is not that, I mean, it's big, but not that big in the world of food. And there's not that many influencers that are fully bilingual. And so I guess you start narrowing down.
The world starts getting really small. It's like, okay, we want a food blogger lifestyle that also speaks Spanish and who targets this customer. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was great. I think honestly, if you ask me what my favorite experience has been in the last 4 years or 3 years, that was when I competed on Food Network.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was like a cheesy wafer or something. What, you won the contest, right?
Yeah, so it was a competition. Like you go in, it's a show called Rewrapped with Mark Summers, and you went in, and your whole thing was like you show up and you don't know if you're gonna make, what you're gonna make, cheese waffles or whatever. So you have to basically make a homemade version.
How did you get on there in the first place?
They found me, so I recreate. I honestly, I make healthier versions of a lot of things, right? That snack book is filled with them. There's about 50 homemade versions of popular snacks out there.
Okay.
And so they found me on Pinterest, and then they started looking. The production company found me on Pinterest and started looking into my work, saw that I had a cookbook published and everything else. And they asked me if I'd like to audition. And
Cool.
I had never done a single thing on video. And I was like, but I'm going to do it. And I did, and I showed up, and then I won. And I was like, you know what? I can do it. And I competed against chefs, and I was like, if a mom from home, like if I can win with like this Monte Cristo waffle sandwich, like I can do this. And that's really what inspired me to look into video. Really, I just, we all hear video's the next thing. Well, I've been hearing video's the next thing for like 2 years. And I was like, okay, I can really do it.
Yeah.
So that's what propelled all the video.
So it's really interesting. And is that video up online? I mean, I only saw the blog post of, telling the story. Can someone watch that video? Like the of you winning?
I think it's out there.
Is it?
You know
Okay.
what? It's a good way to for me to revise the post and provide a link for people to watch it. It's definitely on in Food Network's what is it called? YouTube channel, but I think you might have to pay like $1 for the episode. Not sure.
Yeah. So talk about the team, because
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, it's you
Was just
running
me.
everything,
Yeah.
working whatever 14 hours a day or crazy hours.
Yep.
When did you have your first hire?
My first hire was I would say a hire, even though they weren't really paid at the time. They were contributors to the Momables website.
So how did that work? Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of me...
That's better than a hire.
Yeah, right? There were other up-and-coming food bloggers who wanted to grow their blogs as well.
Yeah.
And I think I might have paid them, like, at the time, $25, $50 for a post.
Right.
Because I felt like instead of me creating all this content, I needed help. And that didn't go over as well.
It did not.
No, because it's really difficult to keep your tone and someone else to match their tone.
Sure.
And I realized that I wanted to be consistent and on brand. And so, because I didn't want Momables to be this logo, I wanted people to connect with the human behind the company.
Sure, yeah.
And so, that was my first hire, my first experience. I still take a couple guest contributors from time to time when people pitch, and it's really great. But for the most part,
It's just
it's
you.
me, and I'm the team that does it. So the next thing I hired out, it's always what I always suggest to an entrepreneur, is to hire out your social media management. hire and train really well, because social media management, and I'm not talking about somebody to do your paid Facebook campaigns and all of that. I'm talking about your scheduling, engagement, making sure things are, brought to your attention, because that really is a time suck for those of us who are in the creation and revenue generation side. Yeah. So hire out your social media. If something's important, and that doesn't mean that you never have to log in, go in once a week, a couple times a week, set a timer for 15 minutes, skim through it, get a really good impression of what your community wants, but then step out. Yeah. Because we all know Facebook can be a trap. You start watching cat videos.
An hour later, you're looking at someone's pictures that you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. So I hired that out really quickly, and then as more social media channels came out, like Instagram and Pinterest, that person's role and responsibilities grew. I do manage my personal Instagram and my personal Twitter and Snapchat. So I do manage those myself. I only have one Snapchat, which is my personal one, not my company Snapchat, just because it's just too many things.
So Laura, what's the most valuable thing you have the social media management person or company do for you? Because I could see, they could do a million different things. So where do you have them focus that makes the biggest difference?
On social media, right?
Yeah. I don't know. What do they do that you find valuable? Because they could be like, okay, I'm just going to do a post here, or do they respond to the audience?
So responding and engagement really is the biggest thing to crack these algorithms. Platforms like Facebook not only do they want you to post there, but they want to make sure like you're not automating the system all the time. You could just schedule and leave. No, they want you connecting, talking to people, all of that. So that's really the most valuable side. Basically, you're paying to engage.
Yeah, because I wanted to have you talk about that, because there's all these Buffer app and all a lot of different apps out there. They're like, okay, they just schedule it out there, but you're saying
no. We do use scheduling apps for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. But we basically, when a post goes, the 11 o'clock, if it's something new, a 3 o'clock post or whatever, I want to make sure that somebody is around that night to answer any questions, go through the engagement, comments, talk back, answer any messages that we get, reply on Twitter, Instagram comments, So really is that reciprocity. That, hey, we're here, we listen. Yeah. Oftentimes people just have questions, or they're like, oh, where is this recipe? Or, something's photographed. What kind of lunchbox is that? So really to provide them with the resources that they're looking for.
That's interesting that was your first hire, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw that the time that was sucked out, and it's non-productive time, so out.
Yeah. It looks like Facebook, you have a huge Facebook group, I think over 120,000 fans. And then is Pinterest really big for Momables brand too?
Yeah, for both Momables and laurafuentes.com, Pinterest is huge, because it's what I do is so visual, right? Yeah. I spend a lot of time learning photography. I now have a staff photographer as well, because I just can't do it all at the same time all the time. Or sometimes I have to be in a picture, so there's just only, and I've already done the whole like setting the camera timer and like running to it. So Pinterest is really big as a traffic referral source. Yeah. It's always in my top 3. I like to make sure it's not number 1. If it's number 1, I'm doing something wrong, even though I have a very visual platform and content, because I don't want to rely on one thing to support my business for traffic. Right. So I like for Google organic, we work really hard on SEO, extremely hard in our blog posts, in our back end side of our website.
Yeah, that's your top, which is search.
Yeah, search is my top. 40% of my traffic is still organic search. And after that is I always like my social channels and my newsletter. My newsletter communities are around 80,000 families. And so we like to keep it, we like our traffic to come from our own community.
For sure. So after social media manager, what was next?
My staff photographer, she came next. And then I've had a couple stints with virtual assistants. Mm-hmm. I say stints.
Now you have Stephanie.
So now I have my awesome Stephanie, which she really is she really is like a
She's
operations
local.
coordinator.
She's local, right?
She's local.
Yeah, so how'd you find her?
So she is, we like nepotism around here in the South, She is family. She's my husband's cousin.
Okay,
yeah.
That's the best, yeah.
That's the
You're
best.
like, you can't leave your family.
It was like, man, if you don't work out, it's going to be really tough.
Right. Those Thanksgiving dinners, forget about it.
But she really does a lot of the coordination. I'm simultaneously managing like 12 different calendars, 10 projects, contracts at the same time. So she has become crucial for me to keep
your
up
second
with
brain.
things. Yeah, it's really my right hand to make sure that everything I got to turn in today gets done. That we look ahead of what's coming up next week. We're on a production schedule that we are ready for video day on pre-production. So really, Stephanie came on last fall, so last September of 2015.
Yeah.
My other hire is she's full-time, and then my other full-time hire is the director of brand partnerships and marketing. And that is strictly for my personal brand that we just spoke about. Yeah. So her sole job is to seek out business opportunities.
Okay. That sounds good. So what tools do you use to stay organized? Like you said, you and Stephanie, what do you use for productivity and organization? Any softwares or tools you recommend?
Yeah. So we have Basecamp. We Basecamp the heck out of everything.
Okay. Now it's a verb. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a verb. It's like, well, let me Google that. Can you Basecamp that?
Yeah.
We also use Dropbox company-wide, so everything is shared via Dropbox with my team. And if you're listening and you use something like Dropbox, please make sure you always have a backup of that running simultaneously. It's super important as a business owner to have a backup of the backup. And
I'm always paranoid like that too, yeah.
Oh, I'm so paranoid. Yeah. Because you know what? I have...
So what do you... I use Amazon S3. What do you...
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Any tool that can back up what you have of your backup,
Right.
It's one thing to lose your hard drive, another one to lose your cloud.
Right.
And we also use iCalendar company-wide, and we have like 15 calendars going shared among different things every Basecamp. And what I like about Basecamp is that I can export that into a different calendar, so I take that off when I'm not working on that project. But really very simple, Basecamp and iCalendar.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, I don't know if I venture to say the most important hire, but one of them is your husband.
Yes.
Quitting. So talk about that decision.
So
this
it comes
is recent.
To a point, it's recent.
Yeah.
We kind of toyed with the idea, wouldn't it be nice, he is definitely his background, we met in the MBA program. His background is finance and operations.
Mm-hmm. What was he doing before helping with Momables?
So before he was a CFO and COO for a small hospital, and then last year that small hospital in healthcare. So that they merged to a bigger hospital, and he took on a role as strategic operations, really project management. He is phenomenal with details, which I despise.
Really?
Yes. Oh. In spite of my entire job being solely focused on...
It seems like you are very detail-oriented, actually. That's why I'm surprised.
I am, but I have a really love-hate relationship with it.
I got you. You don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's very good with all finances. So he manages all the financial aspects. And then he, as you know, or every marketer knows that at some point you really need something more sophisticated to create email funnels, lists. And I was doing it all by myself with something like MailChimp, pretty simple.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, we switched over to Infusionsoft, and we had to have help to do that.
You need a full-time person to run that.
Oh my gosh, that was so complicated. And I have a virtual assistant who handles some of that. And then my husband was working full-time and then helping me with Infusionsoft as well. And then it just came to the point where I was like, okay, we really need to focus we have this huge list and we're really not utilizing it. And I need someone to I can't continuously think about strategic ways to growing that list, plus create content, work deals. I was like, I can't. So the person, it really happened because the person that I need, I can't really hire out there.
Right.
And so I needed
like
him.
You can't hire a COO, CFO of a hospital, but now you can.
And now I can. So this, online marketing is a complete new industry for him. The biggest thing, an advantage that we have is that I always kept him in the loop for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So while he didn't know all the details, he kind of understood the workflow and what happens with this and what happens with that. And I think that's been really, really fundamental to the success of him entering in and not having to learn everything from scratch, or the fact that I didn't go hire somebody with online marketing experience. He's been really learning the industry and how we've been doing things for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So now we launched a new website on Monday. So by the time this podcast goes live, probably it's already out there.
Yeah.
But every opt-in has a different, funnel and where they come from and where the content. So it's really about the ability
to track everything.
To track everything and maximize the traffic. Like I really wasn't, my website in September gets over 1 million page views and visitors because it's back to school. People really come to it. And honestly, I wasn't maximizing what I was building.
Right.
Because there's really only so much I can do,
right.
By myself. And so he's been instrumental in taking that over. And he told somebody the other day, like, I'm working harder now than I was at my other jobs, He's like brain
You're
spent.
a slave driver. You're like, all right.
He's spent at the end of the day. I get up really early, but I also go to bed really early. So, I'm in bed by 9 o'clock now most nights. Yeah.
So tell me about the decision though, because that's not an easy decision.
No.
So how did you know it was time?
So it was time, and I think if you asked him this question, he would say, I saw that it was time when my wife started bringing in what I made in a month and a week. And so he said that phrase to me not too long ago, and I think he would tell you that. But it wasn't just 1 week; it was like consistently. And then we were able to save up. He's super methodical and diligent about our finances. Yeah. We don't have any debt, so except our house. So he was always like, okay, if we're doing this, he made sure that he said yes and quit when we were able to have like a year's worth of expenses saved up in the bank. Because that was the man side, like I want to make sure we're prepared.
Right.
And,
it's true, because you always have that backup, if he's working. If something happens to the site or whatever happens.
Yeah, I didn't earn any money in the first 2 years. So him being our full-time provider really allowed for me to focus in the business and not take any money out. Yeah. And then the first year I earned some, and then the second year more, and so forth. And that's when he realized, okay, this is really like serious.
Yeah. Laura, I want to talk about that for a second, because some people think, they just see what it is now and they see it as an overnight success, right? So how long was it before you actually were earning money that you knew this was going to be a business for you? How long was it?
So probably 2014, 2015. So just
years,
last year.
3 or 4 years. Or 5 years.
Really 3 years into it. And that's the thing. Like most people quit before they're really ahead. And I realized I was very fortunate because I had my husband providing for us while I was, focusing my time on growing this thing. But it's like, that's why I tell you, like, the Food Network thing was really pivotal because not only could I do it, but there is such a thing as like the demand for this type of creativity that's really everyday food.
Right.
And, I'm 37. I have 3 kids. Like you mentioned Rachel Ray earlier, she's getting closer to the 50. And so like, I feel like my generation of moms are different than, while we look up to her, this generation, like, moms my age, we have kids, we're juggling school activities and soccer and like all of these things and still wanting to make food for our family. So I realized that I was not only onto something, but I was also relatable.
Yeah.
And
you live
and
it.
That's really huge to build a community.
Yeah, you live it. Yeah.
Yeah, every day. I don't drive fancy cars. It's like I tell people, like, there are
okay
Cheerios in my minivan, the real deal.
I also want to talk about the content side of things, because that's huge for you. And I thought it was interesting. So I was watching a lot of the YouTube videos, and I was trying to figure out why some have 68,000 views. There's some with 68,000, 44,000, and why one of my favorites, which was the mango popsicle one, only had like almost 1,000 views, right? Because I would think that would be popular. So what separates the Jimmy Dean one was hugely popular with over 68,000 views. Yeah. And I also look at, your videos are like 1 to 3 minutes or so. So talk about your content creation process, because it seems like you have that down and do a really good job with that.
Thank you. So honestly, like I find a balance between the things that I want to make, that I want to create, that I want to eat, and what I know my community is searching for. Because it's just like we just spoke about, because I live it. I know exactly what it's like to cook dinner at this time and whatever.
You're your own customer type of
I
thing.
am my own customer. And I think that is really the best type of like business success, is to be a user of your own product so you can continue to innovate and change. And I knew that moms are not going to watch, we may watch the 30-minute show on Food Network, but when they come to me on YouTube to learn how to cook a meal, I'm not entertainment.
It's like a minute 24 seconds.
Like they want to learn how to make it because they're on their phone in the kitchen with the recipe open, maybe, you know? So I realized that my timing for these recipes and videos it's short. And so I knew that I want to be able to say, I'm going to teach you how to cook something in less than 3 minutes.
Right.
Okay. If I put together I
think one was 45 seconds or something. Like, the Jimmy Dean one
Jimmy Dean was
like you set the timer and you're like, 45 seconds, and like chop. All right. And then.
So that was part of the campaign, the requirements. The client came to us and said, hey, the constraints are 45 seconds. What can you create? And I'm like, 45 seconds. It's a long time on air. So I can make you like breakfast tacos with pineapple salsa. They're like, really? So with shortcuts, I'm not going to make salsa from scratch. I'm going to use store-bought salsa. But the content is always you really have to create great content. Is you have to have an understanding of what can you answer for your target audience. Like, what is your purpose for that?
Right.
Unfortunately, the mango popsicles or whatever, they didn't do as well. But that was just one of my kids' favorite recipes.
Right. Yes, I like that one too. Yeah.
I just made it. How to boil an egg. A hard-boiled egg is like, you go on Google, if you search how to boil a perfectly easy to peel hard egg or whatever the combination is, I'm number one on Google, and
really?
My video is number one on YouTube, and it's got like 300,000 views. But that is a struggle. Like, if you want to make hard-boiled eggs and you don't want them like green or nasty looking, then you can find me and I show you exactly how to make it. And that was funny. It was like one of my first videos way back when.
Is that the most popular video that you have out there?
I think it's the most popular video. And what I say, unfortunately, even though it's my most popular video, unfortunately, that's not a video that it's highly targeted toward the type of audience that really brings in revenue.
Yeah.
So as a content creator, it's one thing when you create content for traffic and whatnot, but when you start to think about content as a magnet or a lead magnet for the type of audience, so that's pre-qualified,
right?
And pre-filtered. Like, I want moms finding me, or people that want to cook for themselves, or that would eventually buy one of my products. Then I have to kind of create the type of content that matches that.
Yeah.
And so, how to keep apples from browning in the lunchbox.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's the one that was 44,000 views, which I love. I think you pour like pineapple juice in the container and in the sliced apples. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and so kind of like, okay, let me answer some of the questions. While the egg one's awesome, or how to wash berries, that's great. But those are universal questions that doesn't really attract.
You want moms, yeah.
I want people who will then opt into my list and everything else. So even though it has less views, there are highly targeted views.
Yeah.
So to me, that's better.
So talk about what big mistakes have you made with content creation that you thought, oh, this is going to work so well, and just crickets, did not work?
Oh gosh.
Because it's probably the same things that I would think or anyone would think to do.
Yeah.
And so I want to learn from what maybe didn't work as well.
Honestly, normally it's like things that are passionate, something that's passionate, that we're passionate about, but it's slightly off brand.
Yeah. Like what? What was that for you?
Gosh, we've had like muffin recipes that I have no idea why they didn't do well. Smoothies, although they're super popular, they haven't done as well. Granted, it's really hard to create something that becomes number one on search.
Yeah.
But it
That's
all
why I'm
comes
asking
down
you,
to,
because you'll have, you test probably a lot of things in a lot of recipes.
yeah, and honestly, a lot of it is just sharing the recipe and not the takeaway.
Yeah.
So not answering like, what is really this? What's the purpose for this? Okay, some recipes are great. Like one of the more involved recipes I say more involved because it's not a one skillet, one pan kind of recipe. It's the most delicious recipe out there. It's like this chicken with prunes and sage, right? And I absolutely love that dish. And it's delicious, hands down, but it's not one that has done really well because not a lot of people are searching for that. And most people don't think to pair. It's a little fancier than my skillet lasagna, right?
Right, yeah.
So, really, you just have to
You're pulling in
try
a lot of factors. You're pulling in speed. You're pulling in what you like. You're pulling in what someone's searching for.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the meld to, creating a popular video or
Absolutely.
content.
And, just you have to spend as much time as you did thinking about the video in creating, setting it up on the back end as well. So I didn't know that at the beginning. So now we're like a lot more SEO centric on everything.
Yeah. I'm just looking over here because I'm looking at all your videos here on the other screen, and it seems like the pancake ones do really well also.
Yes.
The allergy
People
friendly.
know me for my pancakes.
Yeah, the syrup, homemade strawberry pancake syrup recipe did really well. So how do you get ideas for what's next? I mean, do you go to your community? Do you just look online? Is it just what's top of mind for you? Because you have to, how often are you creating videos?
We used to do once a month video production days. We're up to 2 days a month. So about, on average, about 15 videos a month.
Yeah.
So I started when I first launched my YouTube channel about really 18 months ago. I started creating videos to blog posts that were already popular.
Yeah.
So I could bank on the popularity of the blog post. So I went to my Google Analytics and I said, show me the top 10 on both laurafuentes.com and momables.com. And then I looked at, okay, how can I create a visual for those? And I started there. And that was like probably the first 3 or 4 months. And then then I started adding videos to, we have so much content, like Momables has over 500 recipes and blog posts out there. And my personal website has over 300. So it's almost like, what do you start? Well, you start with the most popular things first.
Right.
And then after that, I started using, now when I look at my content calendar, not every recipe that's going to come out gets a video. For the most part, a lot of them get video. Mm-hmm. And so I'm much more, and that also helps when I create content and recipes or things that I want to share how is that going to come across video? Some recipes look great on photo, but the reality is like on video, not so much. Gotcha. Or they're very elaborate, or it's going to take more than 3 minutes for me to explain.
Right. So, Laura, what's a food or meal that parents think is healthy that's really not? Because not only are you producing recipes that taste good, but you focus on healthy recipes as well. What's something you found from creating or researching that is maybe common that people think is healthy, but you're like, no, this is really not that healthy, and so you steer away from it?
Well, the word healthy is super relative. So actually, if you really look at if you look at all my positioning, and I say I really steer away from the word healthy, and I say fresh.
I got you. Okay.
So I really, what I tell people is like, I teach parents how to make
healthy
fresh meals
is a loaded word. Yeah.
Healthy is a loaded word because if you, like, I can tell you that I wake up in the morning and I drink bulletproof coffee in the morning which is like coffee and butter and MCT oil every single morning. And they're like, what? That's
Dave Asprey would be happy to know that. Yeah.
Yes, he would be. For 3 years now, so I love it. It's like my drug of choice, coffee. But most people are like, oh my gosh, how can you be promoting healthy and blah, 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 and you're drinking butter in the morning? Well, my blood work is perfect, and, I'm in best optimal shape in my life. I work out 4 times a week. I feel great. So the word healthy is really relative. Yeah. So the fresh is better. And so, yeah, I think that people, and with that in mind, I think that when people go to the grocery store, sadly, we're very misguided on what is optimal for our nutrition because the box says wholesome, whole grains, simply, the color. I mean, food companies pay a lot of money to understand the psychology of a purchase and therefore how to design their packaging. So I think it's not so much about the one recipe or one meal in particular. The biggest disguise in my opinion, towards it's sugar and whole grains. Our children, ourselves, we are overly sugared, overly whole grained, and overly tired and grumpy most of the time, and that is because we are not fed what we should eat. So I'm not in either extreme. My goal is to teach people how to find a balance and feel okay about that.
Right. Yeah. I like that distinction with fresh. I mean, because fresh, the fresher it is, like if it's not out of a box and there's less ingredients, it's going to be healthier for you.
Right. Are you going to make your pasta from scratch? Probably not. All right. Yeah. That's fine. But what can you add to that pasta meal that has a lot of color? How can you make that more nutritionally loaded meal? So then you can be like, you know what? Boom, there it is. Yeah. So that's really what I try to show people.
I was just curious if you have any controversial posts, like that you didn't consider controversial when you put them out there, but that you got a lot, because moms are some moms are very particular, or dads, about what their kids eat. What's given the most, I guess, commentary, because there was a controversy. You didn't think it was controversial, but it came out. There was a lot of.
Do we have one?
Talk about that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I knew there'd be one or two, yeah. What is it?
I heard my assistant laugh, and I was like, okay, that's right.
Yeah, what is it?
So you mentioned that pancakes are really popular because it's really not complicated to make pancakes, okay?
They come in a box. You just...
It's easy from the box, but not from the box. The thing about it is, like, we already have the ingredients. Why buy the box? Everybody has flour. You probably have baking powder. You have milk. You have eggs. Like, beyond that, it's not that complicated. So recently, actually, this year, for Father's Day, I decided to make these double chocolate chip pancakes.
Sounds good so far.
Right? Yeah. And I had a lot of backfire.
Really?
Even from loyal readers that had been following me for a long time, they misread that instead of eating cake this Father's Day and making my husband a cake, we were going to celebrate. Celebrate means, to me, a little indulgency, have a party or whatever. Right. We were going to celebrate at breakfast with these double chocolate chip pancakes. Yeah. And, well, that just kind of like went in many directions, as you can imagine. I have a very involved community who hits reply to my weekly emails all the time, hundreds by the week. And so even loyal readers who have been like, I've been a follower for a long time, I own your cookbooks, blah, blah, blah. I'm so disappointed. And I'm like,
why?
I'm not telling you to eat double chocolate chip pancakes. I'm telling you to celebrate with that instead of cake. So that's sort of controversial. It's really But I've learned that, you know what, it's really hard to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
So you have to be strong enough to just stand there and move forward, man.
Some controversy is good. You know,
Yeah.
it gets people involved. So that was controversial, I guess. You know, you got some pushback, which is good.
Butter in my coffee is controversial.
I guess I'm just used to that. So that does not seem controversial because of the
but you know, I mean, I get a lot of emails from people who are seeking, they want to lose weight and they want they want to get healthier,
Right.
and the entire family needs to lose weight, and they want low fat recipes. But the reality is that low fat doesn't mean
Right.
lose weight. It means, you know, there's so many other factors in there. And so I always tell people, if you're looking for a nutritional label in every recipe, you're at the wrong place.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. Yeah, high fat, high protein. Good high fat, high protein. I mean, it's researched. I mean, the paleo diet is. I interviewed Dr. Lauren Cordain. You know, he's hundreds of scientifically backed research from his, you know, quote unquote diet. It's more of a lifestyle. I don't like the term diet as much, but so the content creation side, where does which I think was very smart. You also have an option that's a done for you option. People love the done for you option. So tell me about how you incorporated and how that works with the done for you. I watched the video. It's like, the delivery. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How does that work?
So last year I realized that, you know, clearly Fresh Realm, our partner, approached me and they were like, hey, we really love your brand. We like the platform that you've grown and everything else. We'd love to partner with you and create done for you meals. And I realized that people will pay a premium to have some done for them options. And they were already, I mean, it's a huge industry already. You know, there's the Blue Aprons of the world and the Fresh Directs and everything else. And I realized that while most of my audience does make their meals, there's always outliers. There's people that, although they make their meals, they're going out to eat once or twice a week. So that income that would normally go to going out to eat could be spent very much the thing about it is like, I'm not just in food, I'm in the psychology of food. And so what happens is that they'll go somewhere where it's not as healthy, or they'll indulge in something going out, and then they don't feel good about the decision that they made.
Right.
And so it's like a vicious cycle. And so I want people to feel empowered and feel good about what they put in their bodies. Whether you choose to have it delivered to your doorstep, then we're going to facilitate that. And so for me, that was a no-brainer. It's not one of I'll be honest, like it's not one of our revenue targets, and it's not, I'm not involved in all the logistics. It's more like white labeling, but I like offering that premium service to, if you want your stuff delivered, there it is. And there's a lot of people that shop at Whole Foods and they were already buying prepared meals, you know? So that was, we launched that really this January.
Yeah. So Laura, talk about some of the biggest milestones for the business. Whether it's traffic or revenue, where did some of the biggest milestones come in?
So some of the biggest milestones, definitely, you know, everybody talks about their 6-figure milestone, you know, that was really great, really big. For me to be able to hire people full time, you know.
You have a big team, yeah.
We now have a big team. So that was, you know, that to me is like a huge milestone.
Right.
And it's also, not only is it a milestone, but it's a huge learning curve and a role change for myself, because I went from as being a solopreneur to really being the CEO of my company. So therefore, I now have to step back and delegate. And that was really hard. And that was something that not only is a milestone, but something I had to learn how to do. You know, of course, when you get like your first 5-figure contract, that was huge for me at the time.
What about traffic wise? Because you get a lot of traffic going to your site. What was something that you found worked really well that just completely spiked your traffic?
So creating a content cycle is super important. So my milestone, you know, I remember when Momables hit like 500,000 page views, you know, and then we hit 750 and then 1 million, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then that was sort of like a well-oiled machine. And then when my personal site hit like 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 600, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I really, are people really interested in like the stuff that I share? Like I could get like, they see the Momables brand and they're like,
Right.
oh wow, this is like
What do you
food from
attribute that to? I mean, is it just a slow grind over 5 years of creating content? Is it like getting on one of those shows? What do you see
you know what?
has been the biggest leverage point for you?
That you hit the nail on the head. It is a continuous. It's a continuous grind. You have to promote your content. Like so, you have. People we're so focused on creating new things that we forget that our old things is always new to someone who's never been.
Right.
So therefore, really creating a cycle of a content cycle for the stuff that's really great is super important. And that's really what I attribute it. We have a terrific content cycle. Nothing is old. To me is like, I see it, everything's new. It's new to somebody, right? And some of our best things are the things we wrote a year or two ago. So sometimes we're like, yeah, but it's old. No, it's not old. Just take new pictures. Update the graphics or the logo. You know, and I realize not everybody that's listening is into food, but there's so many things that you can do.
So you're updating old posts and then promoting old posts again.
Yeah, create a series of create a new post with 3 of your better ones that link out. So that's really the things that have really contributed to that big milestone of like 1 million visitors plus and such things.
Yeah. Like you, I mean, we talked to the whole time. There's a lot of moving parts to running the business. What's been some of the biggest challenges for you?
Honestly, like I just had this conversation this morning and I'm really, really hard on myself. And my biggest challenge is to accept that I'm already doing great things. So, and that's hard because like
you want to be further along always.
You always want to be further along than where you are today. And so and if you want to do that, you honestly have to look at yourself really critically. So for me, video has been a huge challenge. I've had no camera experience prior to, like I literally went fresh off the boat to Food Network, and I look back at that Food Network video and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have done so much better. But you can't do that, right? What you
gotta
can
start
do
somewhere.
Is look forward and say, well, what can I change? You know, like what are the things that makes me look awkward? Like what can I learn? And even looking at my own YouTube channel, like I look at my earlier videos and people are like, oh, they look at my video that I put out yesterday and they're like, you're natural. And I'm like, yeah, but you say that now.
After 1,000 videos, right?
Right. And so you get better, you know, you just, I think if you stick with it, the key that most people have is that they don't stick with things long enough to become really good at it.
Yeah.
So it's really about the art of mastering something, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to master everything about your business, which is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't give themselves the opportunity at mastering like 3 things that they're really great at, because we focus on mastering so many aspects of our business.
Right.
So I've learned to delegate the things that that I understand but not really great at.
Yeah.
Like project management, Stephanie's phenomenal with that.
Yeah.
You know, there's social media, like my husband with like, you know, Infusionsoft or virtual assistant with that. I understand all those elements. I'm just really not that. If I took on all of that, I wouldn't spend time. I write all my scripts. I do all the production for video. So I wouldn't really, because video is where I want to go.
Right.
So otherwise I wouldn't be focused on growing that part and getting better at it.
Yeah. You know, since this Inspired Insider, Laura, I always ask, what's been the lowest point? And then how you push through. Because it wasn't always 5-figure contracts with, you know, big brands.
Literally, I've had a lot of lowest points, and nearly all of them involved my cookbooks.
Really?
It's super stressful to get these recipes typed out, and literally I've gotten almost physically sick, deadlines, you know, like my lowest points of all, which is why when I tell people 3 and I'm good, like
it's like kids, right? Your kids are like your cookbooks.
I know that this is my last cookbook,
right?
I just know that I know.
Really? Okay.
Because I don't want to physically experience that ever again.
What is it about it that stresses you out so much? Because people, I mean, have that cookbook. Like for you, it's a cookbook. For other people, it's something else in their business that just makes them physically sick. What do you think it is?
I honestly think it's not, at the end of the day, it's not what you should be doing, right? So it's great and they're beautiful, and but it's really not where my talent really is. So when I look at what I enjoy doing the most, that would be producing video production, and in turn that actually, you know, it's really a full cycle, and that brings in revenue for the company, brings in new leads for Momables, it brings new contracts, television opportunities, like a lot of different things. And that's because I focused on what I'm best at.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that until I tried it, you know, so.
You knew that was not where your time should be spent.
Yeah, I definitely know that cookbooks is not where my time should be spent, for sure.
Talk about early on, though. Was there, you know, right now, like you say, it's been 5 years before you see a lot of traction, or 4 years. Yeah. What about early on? Like where you thought, I mean, what kept you going when maybe the traffic wasn't at 1 million page views a month?
Right.
I mean, what were you seeing early on that you're like, it's discouraging?
Talk
about one of those discouraging early moments.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just talk about meal plan development. Okay. Creating meal plans. I should let you guys know that since you're listening and watching, that I'm still creating the meal plans at this moment. And I found that super stressful. And because for a period of time, I had a meal plan developer in place, and she really wasn't the quality. I think I might have mentioned, but I'm slightly a perfectionist, and I know exactly what my audience wants and likes, and I failed at training this person to meet that. And therefore, the quality of my meal plans went down for about a period of a year, which reduced our revenue significantly, about 50%.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And so the biggest mistake and that I've made is letting go something that's super crucial to the revenue of our company, or letting it go to the point of like not supervising it enough, you know? So right now I've been developing meal plans since last February, I think, February or March. And that's been super, super stressful. So even early on, now I'm doing them now and I did them then. Early on, they were kind of stressful, but it was hard for me to like, man, these are really great. Why don't people buy them? But then I didn't know what I know now about marketing and cycling. I didn't have the traffic, and the hardest part is just sticking to it. And the thing is like, I knew that what I was doing made a difference. And so I hung on to that one email that came once a week from one person that said, oh, I just want to tell you that my son hasn't eaten spinach in like 10 years. And I made this these kale tacos or whatever it was. And he ate, and I just want to thank you.
Yeah.
And so I hung on to the things. I still have a folder in this one, in our info email inbox, you know, that's called gratitude, to read. It used to be called to read when you're down. And every time I got one of those emails, I put them in that folder, and I have emails from about 2012 in there, and I read them when I'm down. So that's what kept me going, knowing that what I was doing made a difference.
So we should all have a to read when you're down folder.
You should.
Yeah.
And, you know, you should also have an a-hole folder and never read those. Because you get, as you grow, you get those too.
Especially when you put out recipes for double chocolate chip pancakes, and you'll get.
You bet.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to put yourself out there on the internet. And I think that's a lot of people that create websites and companies on the internet. A lot of people, a lot of bloggers, a lot of content creators are introverts. And so then they hire a business coach and tells them, hey, you need to put yourself out there a little bit more, and so people can relate to you. And they're going, wait a minute, I like being behind the screen.
Right.
And so it's hard to put yourself out there. And when you do, you have to expect people to not like you. Yeah. And you know what? It's totally okay if people don't like you.
Yeah. So Laura, on the flip side, being physically ill from putting out books, what's been one of the proudest moments?
Um, well, recently, one of the proudest moments, I don't go on Facebook too much. My personal my personal Facebook page. But my proudest moment is to be able to say that my husband quit his job. And it was a proud moment for me, but also in the same post, because I realized that I couldn't have done this. I couldn't have given him the opportunity had he not supported us and provided for us for, the last decade, really. We've been married 13 years this fall. So it's really not about me, but it's about what he has also done to put himself in that situation. So that was really one of my proudest moments.
I love that. Yeah. Mentors. Another piece of the puzzle is mentors. Who are influential mentors that you go to, or it's a colleague, to bounce things off from a business perspective that's not in your business? I forgot to even thank Justin Crane for introducing us.
Yes.
I love Justin, and I know you know Justin well also. So thank you, Justin.
Yes, he introduced us. One of my mentors, her name is Melissa Lance. She is how I met Justin. Justin works with Melissa, and Melissa owns a company called The Fresh 20, which is meal planning for dinner only. And she's highly successful. And so while we don't spend, we don't have an hour call every month, nothing like that. I do know that if I reach out, she does make time to help me, and has helped me. She was instrumental when I first launched. And I met her at a conference, super random. And if you ask her why she stuck with me and helped me, it's because she said that, and she told somebody, I heard her say that when I introduced myself to her, I didn't say I'm thinking of doing this. I said, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Right.
Could you please answer these 3 questions for me?
Yeah, you're serious.
And so we became friends after that. So she's been instrumental. I read a lot of social media stuff online. I am friends with somebody named Derek Halpern of Social Triggers.
I read his blog post about you. Because he talked about you and then your success, and then the Marie Forleo program also.
Yeah, so this is like 3 or 4 years ago, but we met, and I just went to New York, had 2-hour coffee with him, and just kind of, what's really cool is that at some point you kind of see, not financially equals, but you can see that in the industry you're sort of equals, and that's really an awesome moment, to know that you're there with the people that you've looked up to. I have an MBA, and I worked in the business industry. We've been business school mentors for 5 years at Loyola University, New Orleans. And I will tell you that business schools and MBA programs are not preparing people to run online businesses. And more so, things are not even necessary. So you have to really... so I did do B School by Marie Forleo really early on. And that was kind of instrumental to kind of, I would say, mental positioning of what I was doing.
Yeah.
I've learned how to write copy online, things like that. So, but on a day-to-day basis, like I literally shoot things back and forth with my husband.
Yeah.
And my dad, my stepdad, like he's in the PR. He was in the PR industry for years, but he's really, really good about telling me whether or not my great ideas are really on brand or not.
Right.
So, so my dad is another one, but really industry-wise, that's about it.
Yeah. Laura, thank you so much. This has been hugely valuable. I appreciate it. So everyone should check out momables.com and laurafuentes.com. It's FUNTES.com. Last question, Laura, for you. So tell me about one of the When You're Down folder messages. What sticks out to you as one of your favorites?
Oh my gosh. You know what? There was one a couple of years back that, a lot of parents come to me with their picky eaters, and this woman thought she was she was very, very hard on her son because she thought that he was a picky eater and he didn't want to try food. So they had like battles on the table. Like it wasn't really, mealtime wasn't bringing the best out of her. And she had read, or maybe listened to a podcast of mine where I interviewed a picky eater expert. And I shared my story about, that I was one of those moms who really not force fed my kids, but really got into it with my kids about not eating and blah, blah. And then I realized that my son had a clinical issue. So it really wasn't about me. And when you shift that, so she was listening to the podcast and took her son to a specialist. And indeed, he had a clinical issue. They've spent 6 months working through it. And it wasn't the food. It was, something clinically wrong. And so she just, it was the nicest, longest email and I was like, you know what? That's how I tell you, like, the littlest things, you make a difference. And it's not making a difference. I don't need to make a difference to a million people. Like, I made a difference in that woman's life and her son's life.
Yeah.
So that's one of those really good ones.
Yeah. Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. It's been awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.